Ladies and gentlemen, as I have talked about before, I have put over $100,000 into one single small cap AI company. That company was up 12% today and has done pretty good so far. Now, the best is still ahead of us. Today, the CEO was the keynote speaker at the Citibank TMT conference at 4:10 p.m. today. And what he said was incredible. Now, if you're familiar with this company, it is Rezolve AI. It is, as I view, one of, if not the most underappreciated AI stock out on the marketplace today. I think buying Rezolve at $4 is like buying Palantir at 10. This company, in my view, is going to grow into being a substantially larger company than where it is today. And the return profile, I think, is going to be insane. I think this is literally a 30x opportunity. You don't come across those all too often. Let me just tell you that. Here in this video, we are going to be going over all of the highlights from this conference. There's been a lot of investors that have been waiting for the earnings call. Now, as we talked about literally last night, the earnings call is now scheduled for October 1st. And the company themselves basically told us yesterday that they're about to smash everyone's expectations. Literally, the company put out this presser that says Rezolve AI to announce strong first half 2025 results and accelerated growth momentum. Like, I've never seen a company say something like this as they schedule their earnings. They're basically telling you they're about to smash it. They're about to blow it out the park. And that's partially why I believe this stock has done well recently. But with some of the details that we are getting today, yeah, it kind of just changed everything for this company, which is also pretty cool. Rezolve AI was featured in Mal business newspaper, South Korea's leading business media. As a side note, I think that's pretty cool. Now, for anyone that is brand new to Rezolve AI, let me give you a simplistic version of what Rezolve is doing. And it's a relatively easy business to understand, but it does get a little complex. And we'll talk about that a little bit later with some of what Dan Wagner said. He is the CEO. But the long story short version is, if you have 10 people that go into a Nike physical store, 7 people on average are going to buy something, okay? Because they can ask questions, they can try things on, blah, blah, blah. Well, if 10 people go to Nike's online website, only about 3 people are going to buy something because you can't get questions answered. Like, it's just not a great experience. Well, Rezolve believes they can raise the amount of people that purchase something. They can help businesses grow their revenue. Rezolve says that they have already seen 25% higher conversions and a 10% boost to revenue from companies that partner with Rezolve and their technology. Go a lot deeper than that. And the interworkings of the partnership between Microsoft and Google create a much different dynamic that even I wasn't fully aware of before today. And that's where things get exciting. And that's why I say that this kind of changed everything for Rezolve. Now, the conference today and Dan Wagner's fireside chat is about 35 minutes long, roughly. If you are heavily invested in Rezolve, you should listen to the whole thing. But if you don't have time for that, if you don't want to for whatever reason, we're going to go over the highlights here. First and foremost, the moat is bigger than we thought. Now, one of the big risks that I had foreseen with Rezolve is that another company, Anthropic, Grok, or another large language model could come in and disrupt Rezolve. Now, Rezolve, and Dan specifically, he's worked in online retail for a long time. So he understood from the beginning, back in 2016 when they founded Rezolve, that it's not like an issue getting a large language model to give you prompts, but the hallucinations can be difficult to get around. Like, for an example, if, as Dan explained it today, if you have a deodorant or a cologne that says, sandalwood notes and, spicy and all this, a large language model is going to look at that and start recommending wood or spice, right? It doesn't understand the context of that is just describing a product. So partially the moat that Rezolve has is they believe they're the only large language model that does not have hallucinations in retail, where the model stays focused on the product. It doesn't deviate from that, okay? Now, Dan says that they have multiple patents to protect this technology, and that's why Google and Microsoft were essentially forced to partner with Rezolve, and why they didn't partner with another large language model company, right? That there's actually a moat here to this, okay? Dan says that large language model companies have tried to do retail AI and just cannot do it, okay? That it's going to take a while for them to do that. Now, number two, there is an exclusive partnership with Microsoft and Google. So Rezolve basically said today that they did not want to partner with Google and Microsoft unless it was exclusive. Like if Microsoft and Google were going to partner with a bunch of other companies, they weren't interested. Okay, so I think that shows just how good the product is, that Microsoft and Google decided to enter exclusive partnerships with Rezolve. And it was kind of like one of those things where the first company did and then the other one had to as well, right? Like there was almost no choice. If Microsoft partnered, then Google would be at a disadvantage. If Google didn't partner, Microsoft, would win there, right? Number three, the company had almost 100 million in ARR in China, but was forced to divest that business before listing on the New York Stock Exchange. So basically, the company had almost all of their revenue coming from China. So when you look at the company, you will see a company that has like zero revenue when they IPO'd. But they really weren't a pre-revenue company. They had to divest that business in China because at the time, nobody, would take it serious. Like all your revenues in China, what a, risk that would be, right? So they had to divest that business. And he explains that's why they IPO'd, quote unquote, pre-revenue. They weren't actually pre-revenue. That was something I did not know before today. Number four, and he also went on to say that it's incredible how fast that they've already grown to now being over 100 million in ARR. We're going to get an update and more details on October 1st, but we're expecting over 100 million in ARR. We could see 200 million in ARR by the end of this year, and that's where the significant upside comes from in this company. More on that in just a moment. Now they say number four, the function they use between getting customers to land on pages or landing pages on Google and Bing, then driving them to the website, using the AI sales agent, and then having them check out, it's the full suite. So Dan basically said today, I'll use his exact example. He was talking about Barbie Pink, right? The movie that came out, the craze, everyone was loving Barbie Pink, right? I think that's died down a little bit at this point. Not exactly my forte, so I'm not sure. Either way, Dan says that if someone Googles something, Barbie Pink, then what happens is the companies that are partnered with Rezolve pop up first, whether that's a Barbie Pink dress or whatever it is. It pops up first. So with the partnerships that Google has and Microsoft have with Rezolve, you get customers to land on landing pages of like BJ's Wholesale or whatever it is, KFC, whatever your specific search term is, those results pop up first. So Rezolve is in real time driving customers to landing pages based on certain retail searches, okay? Once they land on those pages, if the company in question, let's say BJ's Wholesale, for an example, has the partnership as well to use the large language model aspect, then a customer can specifically ask BJ's for a certain product, right? And then if they have the brain commerce checkout, which different companies have different aspects. Some are just partnered to have people land on their landing page on Google. Some are have the full suite of packages, right? We didn't get that clarity on exactly who has what, blah, 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 but you get the idea. You land on a landing page of the company that is partnered with Rezolve. Great, for a specific search trend, whether it's Barbie pink or it's a fishing pole or whatever. And then you can get more details on that using the large language model on the site. And then you can completely check out using the brain checkout feature. So it's the full suite from literally search to checkout. Rezolve is dominating in this field if you are partnered with Rezolve. Okay. Number 5, Rezolve believes, again, they are the only company to use AI large language models without hallucinations. Number 6, they want to be a market leader and are the market leader for now. Dan says competition will come, and that's why they are focused on execution now to solidify their spot at number 1. Dan makes it clear that they believe they're number 1 right now, but they really need to execute to keep that position. Okay. Dan says that the R&D has already been done, so they do very little R&D today. So they spent from 2016 until today doing R&D in the business, developing the software, doing the hard work. So they're really only focused on executing right now, growing revenue, growing clients, growing profitability. Okay. He says they will be pursuing more M&A activity with other designated to fail search companies. Dan basically says that he views all search companies as on the road to death. Basically, he can go out with Rezolve and take companies, acquire companies in a strategic way at depressed valuations. He, for an example, said if there's a search company in Spain that they can acquire to get a market presence in that area, that could be a good idea. Or getting another company in Brazil that's a search company to penetrate that market. He explains it like, if you and I had a business relationship for a long time, I was in a search company that was destined to fail. If Rezolve buys me out, it's going to be easier for me to sell you on Rezolve's products than Rezolve coming in as a third party that you have no history with and Rezolve trying to sell you. Does that make sense? It kind of makes the process a lot easier. Now, they say they are, quote, highly profitable. I'm assuming this means per customer and gross margins. Now, to start off this year, we had a goal of 70 million in ARR by the end of this year. Last earnings, the company came out and said they've already achieved 70 million in ARR, that they're actually on track to achieve over 100 million in ARR. Now, on October 1st, I believe the company's going to come out and probably give us a target for 200 to 300 million in ARR this year. So they're going to massively exceed 100 million in my view. And that's kind of the whole gist of what I got today in the fireside chat was all about as well. Now, obviously we'll know on October 1st, but he did use the words highly profitable. We don't know if the targets change. So previously we were expecting to be net profitable at 90 million in ARR. Based on some of the other businesses that they are now focused in, like professional services, that number may have moved up a bit. We don't know that as of now. That's something I'm speculating. But again, per customer on a gross margin basis, he says they are very profitable, okay, which should be the case. He also says that the professional services segment is already a significant portion of revenue. This was brand new information because they literally just launched this like 2 months ago. So he already says the professional services segment is already a significant portion of revenue. And basically what he said with like Liverpool, Mexico, they have tens of thousands of products that they need to build descriptions for and have images for on their website. And he basically said that Rezolve realized there was a lot of companies in this position that just couldn't or didn't want to do that work in-house. So now they have Rezolve to build their catalogs, to build their online presence. That is part of their professional services segment that really wraps into all of the other AI projects that Rezolve is currently doing, right? So that makes sense as an evolution or another addition to Rezolve's business. We don't know what this professional services segment is, but he said a significant portion of revenue. So you mix that on top of the previous guidance we had before the professional services division was even created, And that's where I'm starting to foresee a massive beat and raise on guidance for October 1st. He literally, unless he's like, you know, just saying shit, like, it only makes sense that we're going to get a massive beat to guidance. Now, Dan says specifically, and he worded this perfectly. Dan says that the Liverpool contract is the largest, keyword, announced contract. He said that the Liverpool contract is in the upper 80% of like largest contracts. So that suggests that there is a larger contract than Liverpool. Just in and of itself, like, he did not say that was the largest contract. He left room for interpretation that there is an even larger contract than Liverpool. I don't know if that's the case, but that is what it sounded like. I write here, suggesting that there are other large deals yet to be announced. Now, Dan also says that this is an opportunity for investors. Dan says that investors have the opportunity right now to get behind a company at the forefront of AI retail, which is a $30 trillion opportunity. Minus Amazon, it's more like a $15 trillion opportunity. Roughly. Dan mentioned that, Amazon's like 50% of online commerce, so they're targeting that other 50%. If they ever were to have a partnership with Amazon, that would be like a complete game changer. But at this point, that doesn't look like it's in the cards as of right now. But he basically says that they are number one, and you have an opportunity right now to invest in the company. Now, that means very little to me. I don't really care about that. I'm making my own assessments on all of this information. But it does sound good, I will say, to hear a CEO that is so confident in his business. Now, one of the big things that has always drawn me to Rezolve from the start, that made me really, perk my attention to this company, is the massive amount of insider ownership, okay? You can see that this company is really like 40% owned by insiders. Okay, Wall Street just now started to initiate positions, like Citadel that bought a 7% stake in a company about a month ago. We've seen BlackRock, Vanguard, Fidelity, literally Jane Street, Sequoia, literally all of them that are loading the boat on this company. But a massive amount of shares are owned by insiders that directly, benefit alongside retail investors. If you do well, they do well. Okay, and vice versa. You can see Goldman Sachs, Citadel, Virtue, Susquehanna, literally all of the big firms, Jane Street, Morgan Stanley, National Bank of Canada, they're all going out and buying this company. Like, they are loading up first. And like, we did so before all of them, but now everyone else is starting to realize the opportunity here. And last but not least, the other thing that really drove me to Rezolve in the first place was the discrepancy of valuation. So if you look at other AI stocks that we all know of, BBAI, SoundHound, Nebius, other data center names, energy names, Palantir, like Rezolve, as of now, is now trading at about 9 times sales based on 100 million ARR. The company said they're on track to exceed that. So we don't know exactly where things are at, okay, until earnings. Wall Street is becoming more confident, hence the stock has went up recently, that we are going to get a big beat to guidance, right? When I first bought the company, it was trading at about 6 times sales. It was about a 600 million market cap, okay? Now it's about a $900 million market cap following today. Well, if the company comes out with 200 million in ARR by the end of this year, or 300 million, could be more in the cards, then you're only trading at a 3 times price to sales, okay? Other well-known AI stocks trade anywhere between 12 and 20 times sales on average, price to sales. So again, assuming this company comes out with, let's say, a 300 or let's be more conservative, 200 million in ARR. Okay, times this by maybe 15 times price to sales. That would be a $3 billion company. That would be, I mean, divided by 900 million. That'd be a 3.33x from here. That would put the stock at about 410. That's where it's currently at. That would put the stock at about $13.66 following October 1st. There is a big difference between $4.10 and $13.66. Where things get absolutely wild is if maybe the company throws out loose guidance for 2026. I think we could be seeing $1 billion in ARR by the end of 2026. Okay, maybe more than that, but $1 billion could be quite reasonable. Well, times that by a 10 times price to sales, you're at 10 billion. Times that by 15 times price to sales, you're at 15 billion. Divide that by 900 million, all of a sudden you're looking at a 16.5x from here. Hence, buying Rezolve today is like buying Palantir at $10 a share, in my view. Okay, then you're looking at a stock that's somewhere around $68 by the end of next year. Okay, that's where I see the opportunity. Okay, it's not just for this earnings. It's not a short-term trade, but a multi-year trade in my view. Okay, so that's kind of what changed today via the fireside chat. We got a little bit more details on how the business works. Very strong indications that we're going to have some big things to report on October 1st. A very strong sign that we're going to be impressed coming October 1st. Let's put it that way. And I think the upside opportunity is massive. Completely massive. Now, by then, I believe the company should be profitable, and then we're going to be trading on a different metric, not necessarily price to sales, and assume there's going to be some dilution to this, right? You might get some dilution. You might be 20% lower than $68, times this 0.80, and you're looking at a $54 stock. Even with 20% of the shares being diluted between now and the end of next year. If my billion in ARR projection is correct by the end of 2026, $54, I'll take that. With 20% dilution to the overall float, yeah, it's almost like a win-win in my view. Again, I'm not a financial advisor, not a financial planner. Come to your own conclusions, but this is what changed today in Rezolve, and why I'm so bullish on the company and why I view this as such an opportunity. And again, for anyone that does not know, the company went public via a SPAC. So Wall Street was really not invested in this company up until recently at all. Wall Street owned about 5% of shares. Because of the de-SPAC and the restrictions and the process of de-SPACing, Wall Street doesn't touch a de-SPAC. But now that is over with and is no longer an overhang on the company. And I think it's really just a matter of time before we're back, really like $10 plus a share could be in focus by October 1st, in my view. Logically, like that's not like a short squeeze. That's really not gaining a lot of attention. Like logically speaking, justifiably speaking, we should be like $10 plus a share right now, in my view. Again, if retail investors catch on to this and maybe there's a bit of hype around it, that could obviously change things a bit, but there's not a lot of retail investors that even know this company exists. Okay, sentiment on StockTwits is now extremely bullish. Message volume is high at 68, but still, even retail doesn't really know about the company. So if you're someone that likes to get ahead of stocks before retail does, I think Rezolve is another prime example of that. But I look at that as the cherry on top to what is already a delicious cake. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. If you guys want to come trade with us live in real time, again, what I'm doing is going out, finding these small cap AI stocks like Rezolve before everyone else's. Portfolio is up 91% this year. In the top 1%, top half of 1% of hedge fund and institutional like returns. Nobody's doing what we're doing, okay? It's not financial advice. things may not continue like this. Contact financial advisor before making an investment decision. But hey, we are doing this thing. So if you want to come join that community, link down below in the description of this video. Have a great evening, and I will see you in the next one.